So we're back again with part 5 of this little mini-series, and before we start I would like to say something. The channel has been seeing some really good growth lately, and although we're only at 83 subscribers and it might not seem like a lot, it means a lot to me. But anyway, you're here for free agency stuff, so let's get on to that. I just wanted to say thank you. But first up today for us are the Miami Heat, who made a surprise trip to the finals this year, losing to the Lakers in 6 games. I would consider this a great success, considering people thought they'd win 45 games and be the 8th seed. It's me, I'm people. But they are in a very good position going forward, and hopefully this offseason and next they can just add to that success. They have around $26 million in cap space, but they also have guys like Dragic, Crowder, Myers Leonard, and Derrick Jones Jr. expiring. I think you can let guys like Myers Leonard and Jones Jr. go, but Dragic is a seriously important free agent that I think you need to retain, and Crowder is also important. I know I had Dragic going to the Suns in the last video, but I think Miami should retain him on some big one-year deal and then next offseason sign him to a longer-term deal. But that's not what this is about. Who should the Miami Heat sign while retaining their cap space next year who can also contribute this year? I think this team should go for Mason Plumlee. It was hard finding someone who would fit into the Heat culture, and at the end of the day there's no way of really knowing. But Mason Plumlee can at least sort of supplement what Bam provides when he's off the floor, even if he isn't a great defender. He's a pretty decent playmaker for a big, and which would allow for them to run some of their usual sets that they run with Bam, at least in theory. He's just a decent backup big who they could probably get with a big one-year deal, and it would be in a contending position, so he may be enticed to leave Denver. Now we're on to the Heat's first round matchup, the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are an interesting team in an interesting position. There's rumors that Oladipo wants out, and the Turner-Sabonis fit isn't exactly ideal. Outside of that, they have a pretty solid team. They have Malcolm Brogdon, TJ Warren, Jeremy Lamb, and Aaron Holiday. I believe that Holiday will be one of the best backup point guards for years to come. But assuming Oladipo isn't traded and at least somewhat returns to form, what free agent can these guys sign to help them on a playoff run? Now, this guy might not be a huge difference maker, but for a team who already has a pretty decent playmaking big, I think Dario Saric could prove pretty useful for these guys. Saric isn't great at anything, but he's at least pretty decent at pretty much everything. He definitely can be used as a playmaker as well as a stretch big, whether you want him to play next to Miles Turner or run out a lineup with Sabonis at center, which is where I think he should be playing. I think he fits seamlessly with the rest of this team. He should even take some mid-level type contract, and I think he'd be a fine addition for the Pacers. Now we're on to one of the most interesting teams, and it was hard to choose who to pick for the Celtics. The Celtics have one of the brightest futures in the league, with Jason Tatum at the helm and guys like Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart to play beside him. There are 2 things the Celtics really struggled with this season. That's bench production and their big man play. Robert Williams and Daniel Tice are fine, but neither are probably good enough to start on a title contender. Here's my obligatory Grant Williams mention because he's kinda just whatever. Now there's been a million Gordon Hayward trade rumors, and Miles Turner is a very popular target for trade, and I think we'll go with a big man here for the Celtics. Their bench needs so much work that you can really just get anybody, and it'll probably be an improvement. So for the Celtics free agent, I'm picking Tristan Thompson. Now they are at $140 million, so I'm not entirely sure how much money they will have to throw at somebody. They might have the mid-level, they might not. But either way, Tristan Thompson would definitely fill the hole the Celtics have quite nicely. He's a very good rebounder and a decent inside defender. You could argue that they would rather have a more defensive-oriented big man, and that's fine, but I think Thompson would be a good fit anyway. Next up are the Raptors, who are a very interesting bunch in an interesting position. They have a very good team as well as a lot of expiring guys. Van Vliet could command $20 million, Ibaka could get a pretty penny, and Boucher is pretty solid. They're trying to be players in the 2021 free agency, but they need to stay competitive next year in order to be a desirable location. So who could they get to help out, assuming they retain all of their guys? Marc Gasol is reported is going to play in Spain, so there's a hole to fill, and I think we will fill that hole with an athletic center, who is a pretty good defender. One who you might have given to the Celtics, Nerlens Noel. Like I said, he's pretty athletic and is a decently smart defender and can most certainly soak up backup center minutes or maybe even starting center minutes, depending on what they do with the rest of their roster. Either way, I like the potential fit, and I think they could get him for decently cheap. Last up for today are the Milwaukee Bucks. They're in a very interesting position with Giannis's pending free agency, and I think their main improvements will come from trades rather than mid-level signings. For instance, they could trade for Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, Bogdan Bogdanovic in a sign-and trade, and other such names. But in terms of free agency, what can we do here? I think the Bucks could use Alec Burks, even if they already do have Dante DiVincenzo and Sterling Brown off the bench. He can force the issue on offense a bit more than these guys can, and can still play alongside those guys, and can potentially start some, assuming, regardless of what they do with Wesley Matthews. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. One more episode left in the series, and I have to come up with actual more topics. But if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. And y'all have a good one.